Okay, everyone. So today we're going to test out 4 lenses. Okay, this is the Sigma 135 f 1.8, I believe, is the aperture. Yep. This is my Zeiss 50mm f 1.4. And I use this one probably the most in studio. First of all, because it's short, so I don't need a lot of length when I'm shooting. The bokeh on it is fantastic, and it's sharp as a tack. And we are also going to show the Sigma 105 f1.4. So this one is probably my most favorite lenses, period. The reason for that is because it's most like the f2 200mm by Canon, and that was my favorite lens. But this one is sharper. The only downside to this one is that when you're shooting your subject and there's backlight behind them, like let's say they're standing in front of a sunset, you're going to get this milky kind of white, misty look to your photos, which is not very good. So in a situation like that, I always grab my 135. But we're going to also show, I just need to grab it, my Canon 85mm f1.2. Now, why do I have this if I shoot Sony? Well, I don't own an f1.2 lens, although it is on my bucket list, and I am planning on getting one hopefully in the next few months or so. But I always loved this one, and it was really hard for me to let it go when I started shooting Sony as opposed to Canon. And granted, the images are not tack sharp. There's a lot of chromatic aberration, but the beauty of the bokeh sometimes makes it worth it. And especially if you're like me and you do more digital art than straight photography, you can always figure out ways in post that you can correct those imperfections. So we are going to start with the 105 because it's on my camera right now. And I just wanted to give you a couple tips. So this is specifically for the photographers out here who love that creamy, dreamy bokeh, and you are struggling to get the look. There's a few things that you have to keep in mind when you're shooting. Number one, you have to make sure that your subject is in front of the texture. So, I mean, the texture can be on either side of them, and that works perfectly fine, as long as the texture extends all the way back. So if you have hedges or a pathway, if you have branches or flowers or something that goes back quite a way in the distance, then you're going to get that dreamy, creamy bokeh. If you place someone up against a wall or a rock, you're not going to get any bokeh, right? Depth of field means there has to be depth to the image. So this is why I have my subject in front of the foliage and I have additional layers of foliage going in behind. I'm using Continuous Lights by Solix, Westcott Solix, and that's just lighting up my scene. I can shoot wide open in studio and adjust my shutter for the light, okay? So as always, I'm going to get down to my subject's level, so I'm going to get on the floor and we're going to give it a go. So this is the 105. So knowing that this is the 105, right now I see the whole image. Just going to take a shot. I'm going to get a little bit closer because the closer I can get to my subject, the more dreamy that bokeh becomes. And I'll show you the examples. So if you want to do full body, which I do a lot, just keep in mind that with full body, you're not going to have as much bokeh. So let's move on to our next lens. So the next one that I'm going to demo is going to be my Zeiss 50. And I'm going to show you all of these images in post afterwards and pull them into Photoshop, and that way you can see the absolute differences between the two. But keeping in mind that the 50, I have to get much closer to my subject. But this lens is so sharp. Sharp, sharp, sharp. I love it. Beautiful. Okay. I apologize. I apologize if my microphone is bumping. All right, next one, we're gonna move on to our Canon 85 1.2. Again, I'm gonna get relatively close to my subject. Now, if you're like me and you like using lenses that are not native to your camera body, just keep in mind that the focusing is not going to be quite as dreamy with an adapter. And for this one, I'm using the Sigma adapter. And sadly, these images are never as sharp as my other lenses, but I do love it. Okay, next one is our Sigma 135 f1.8. So we're gonna do the same thing. And oh my gosh, Sigma, you guys, tack sharp. It's just mind-boggling how much sharper these images are than with Canon. Okay, so this is the 135. I'm going really close because I want you to see how dreamy the difference is. Okay? And that's about it. Let's go into Photoshop now, shall we? So we're starting with the 105. So these are the images from the 105. That was the very first lens that I used. And as you can see, we have lovely depth of field. The bokeh is beautiful. Everything is blurred out. And our subject is nice and sharp. Here's another one. So I moved in closer, right? So as I move in closer to the subject, everything becomes even more blurry, more bokeh-licious, more beautiful. And you can see how sharp this image is. And here's the last one. But just take a look. So you can see that the further the foliage is away, the more blown away it gets as far as blur. And if you love the blur, just get closer into your subject. And the next one we're going to take a look at, we're going to look actually at the 135. Now I did this specifically to demonstrate this. So if you're using the 135 or the 105 or any other lens that has a really wide open aperture like these, and you step far away from your subject, you're going to notice that the environment isn't quite as blurry as when you push in and get closer. So this one was taken and I was quite a ways away. Then I moved in closer. Now take a look at that. Our subject gets sharper and the background, the environment gets more blurry. But see how sharp this is? And remember that this is the 135. And here's one midway. So it does have a gorgeous blur, beautiful bokeh. There is no chromatic aberration on these lenses by Sigma or by Zeiss or Sony, like just none. And the way that you can look is when you look at your highlight on other lenses, specifically Canon, you're going to see a lot of magenta or even green sometimes in those highlights around the edges of your image. We're going to move on to the Canon 85. Let's take a look. So this one is a little wider, but you can really tell how much more bokeh you get when you have a 1.2 as opposed to a 1.4 or a 1.8. It's quite significant, which is why I want one. However, Canon, here's the issue with this lens. You can see all the chromatic aberration, so much of it. If I go around her arm, do you see this? Look at the magenta around this highlight and all along the perimeter. And God forbid you have some actual pink in the image. And it's a pain in the butt because you have to spend time getting rid of it. So much magenta. So not as sharp. See her lips? See her nose? It's really soft, which is pretty typical for Canon that I found anyway. Let's take a look at our 50. Nifty 50. Oh my gosh. And this is full body, stepping back, but look at the bokeh. It's still lovely. The sharpness of this image is to die for. And I'll show you in a second. There's absolutely no chromatic aberrations anywhere. See that? Just perfect, flawless sharpness. This one's a little further away, but you can tell that the blur from this lens is just significant. So as you can see, the nicest bokeh is the 85, but it's not sharp and there's that chromatic aberration. And the next two that are pretty tied are the 135 and the 105 for the nicest bokeh, but you have to push in closer. The 50 is probably the sharpest out of them all, but the bokeh isn't quite as buttery. There's more contrast to it. So I hope this helps you decide which lens is best for bokeh. There's so many reasons why you might want to have a blurry background, or you just want to separate your subject, but just keep in mind, watch your environment, get in close if you want a lot of blur, but there's so many creative uses for bokeh, and I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.